Hi there, it's Anne of Rosie Duck Designs here. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. Once again, I'm keeping things very simple and basically letting the designer series paper do the work to make hopefully what is going to be a pretty card at the end of it. We have so many choices of designer series papers within the two current catalogues, and sometimes we can just get sidetracked in thinking about what we can add to a card without really showcasing the papers. So that's what I've been trying to do quite recently, and just basically keeping it very simple, stamping and using the paper to make some cards that I've been quite happy with, so I hope you've enjoyed seeing them so far. The paper that I'm featuring today is going to be the hand penned designer series paper, which is part of the hand penned suite, which you will find on pages 104 to 105 in the current annual catalogue. I'm just going to make myself comfortable, having just checked my video is going round, so I apologise if there's a little bit of background noise. I've learnt that trick that I need to make sure the video is working before I then spend the next however minutes chatting to me, to myself and to possibly the cat who's asleep above me. So I'm happy it's going round, so we can get on with the video. So I thought I would share with you the paper, first of all, the various papers within that particular set of designer series paper. Lovely subtle palette going on with this particular paper, and as you can see on one side there's a lovely floral element of design, and then flipping it over there's some really lovely background papers. I love this sort of washed look that we've got going on here on the backgrounds, and again a really pretty choice of colour. This is the one that we're using today, and I'm going to use that with the flip side of the floral here. And there we go, there are the papers. I have to be honest that it hadn't really dawned on me until I sort of basically was putting this all together, or sitting down and putting it together to do this video. I realised I've kind of been using the pale papaya quite a lot, so I could have chosen any one of those, but for some bizarre reason I've gone with the pale papaya. So I apologise if the colour's getting slightly boring, but it is a very pretty colour, and I promise that my next project will feature something totally different. So I'm going with a base card in white card this time, and that is my normal size of 6x8 scored at 4 on the long side, or 20x15 scored at 10 on the long side. Hoping I've got all my bits here. I've got a piece of designer series paper that I'm going to be using that way up, which is 3 3/4 by 5 3/4, or 9.5 by 14.5 in the metric. I've got another piece of designer series paper which I'm going to be using this way up, and that is 2 3/4 by 5, and that is 7.5 by 12.5 in the metric. I've got a piece of pale papaya card cut at 3 3/4 by 5 3/4, so that's 9.5 by 14.5 in the metric. And then I've got another piece of basic white cut at 3.5 by 5.5, and that is 9 by 14 centimetres. I've die cut a couple of little squares, or oblongs rather, using the, I should know the name of this, Stitch Those Sweetly dies, so we'll look at that later. I've used pale papaya for the larger one, basic white for the small one, and I've just inked the sentiment of thinking of you on the small piece of the white card. I've got a little strip to pretty up the inside of the card, and that is cut at 1/2 inch by, I've done this at 3 3/4, but it's slightly longer than my card, so I normally recommend 1/2 inch by 4.5, 1.5 by 11.5, but as long as it's longer than this bit, the important measurement is 1/2 inch or 1.5 in the metric. This bit, it's not, it doesn't really matter as long as it's slightly longer than your piece of card that you're trying to cover. Finally, I've got another piece of designer series paper cut at 1.5 by just slightly over 4.5, so that's 4 by 11.5, so I would probably go 11.7 in the metric, and I'm going to put that on my envelope. So there we go. So let's put the card together. I'm going to start with my little inset card where we can write the message on. I'm going to tie this strip in with my first layer that's going on the front of the card. So let me just secure that onto the card. And I do say this every time I use a strip to decorate the card, but I cut it slightly longer and then trim it afterwards. That way you make sure that it fits exactly, rather than measuring it exactly at 3.5 inches or 9 centimeters and then finding your measurement is slightly out and you've got a tiny bit showing here of the base card. So we might as well finish off the inside first. So because I'm using the base card of white, I'm going to pretty up the inside a little bit more by adding an inside layer with the pale papaya. Just going to centralise that as best I can. There we go. Put my stamp and seal on the back of the white piece of card, and again we're just going to centralise that in the middle. Now you could hand stamp an image on the bottom of the card there to pretty it up. You could also include a sentiment of your choice in the middle. I'm just going to leave this as a note card to just write a message in this area. So moving on to the front, I've got my larger piece of the designer series paper, and I'm using that with the polka dot effect. And I'm going to just centralise that. Just trying to work out whether I want dark going into light or that way or that way. I'm going this way, so dark coming into light at the top. If I didn't say, it should be obvious by now, hopefully, but it's a portrait style card. Then I'm using my designer series paper that way up, and I'm going to add Wink of Stella. Of course I'm adding Wink of Stella. You'd be concerned if I wasn't. Let's be honest. I'm going to do that before I stick it down. It doesn't matter whether you stick it down and then add this or do it the other way around. I'm just going with the full heads of the flowers rather than the little buds. But I just want to give it that little bit of extra touch that it will shimmer a little bit when the light catches it. And because unless I've used Wink of Stella, I almost feel like I haven't really made a card. But I have said before, it costs very little. I think it's around £7. I should have looked it up. But it's not at all expensive, and yet just that addition of the Wink of Stella to your projects, it just gives it that little bit of extra lift and just makes it stand out a little bit more. Not sure if the light is going to catch that or not. It's quite sunny, so I've had to draw the curtain, so I'm not sure you're getting the shimmer on that. But basically it's shimmering on the areas that I've added the Wink of Stella to. So let's put some, and if you haven't got enough shimmer on it, you can always go back and add another layer. In my book, you can never have too much Wink of Stella. So with this one, I'm not actually going to centralise it. I'm going to keep it slightly off centre, just to mix it up a little bit. So I'm going to go over here. So I've just got one line of the dots showing, and that's worked out quite well because I've got 2 dots here and 2 dots there. Just wanted to mix it up a little bit. Then I've got these 2 pieces of card cut out, and I've used, as I said, the Stitched So Sweetly dies, which have taken over from the layering ovals, as they're no longer current. They are still on my desk and regularly used for things I don't share on YouTube, so still a great investment, but I always find it's frustrating if I'm showing you things that you can't buy and you sort of think, oh, I want that, and then somebody says, well, actually you can't have it. So I try to keep my projects current, using current products. So that is the 2nd smallest and the 3rd smallest. The die set is a really good die set because you've got these rectangles going on, but you've also got these nice little shapes over here. I think, kind of note to self, I should mix it up a bit and start to use those a little bit more. But a really nice set for adding sentiments if you want to then die cut them. You can of course use a punch, use one of the label punches and make your or stamp your sentiment out and then just punch that out. So die cutting is not essential, neither is a punch. You could just cut 2 squares out of similar sizes. So we've got 2 3/4 by more or less 1.5 inches there, and that is 2 1/4, say 2 3/4, yeah, and 2 1/4 by about 1 1/4. So you could have the same effect just cutting out 2 squares of card and sticking those together. So it really doesn't have to be complicated. So I'm just going to put that in the middle. And then I'm going to attach that to my card using some stamping dimensionals. I'm going with 5. I was thinking 3, but I'm going to go with 5. It's for the sake of 2 dimensionals, it's not worth worrying about. But you want to make sure it's going to stick on your card and not get dislodged. And I'm going to add that more or less in the centre up here, but again I'm leaving the 1 layer of dots showing. So just a little bit of an extra, not extra, a different design that I've used on that card. I'm going to finish off the envelope. I'm going to this time make sure my envelope is up the right way. And I'm going to use, I think, the floral side of that because that's quite pretty. Again, I've cut this slightly longer than needs be for the same reason that I want it to fit properly. So when I flip that over, I can just trim the bottom bit. Stick some Wink of Stella on here just for good measure. we could leave the card just like that. I was looking for an embellishment that could just add a little bit of extra bling to it, and the clear rhinestones would have worked had I not run out of them. But I was rummaging around and I found my Expressions in Ink ephemera pack, and there's a really nice pack of sequins within that particular pack. So that is part of the Expressions in Ink suite, and this particular pack cost £6.50. Got lots of die cut elements with it, some gold foil elements there. Hope you're getting a bit of an idea of that. So some labels and leaves and various little bits and pieces that you can add to your projects, but also was this really pretty packet of sequins, which kind of the colours went with this paper, so I thought I would have a look and see whether they worked with it. And all I'm going to do is just add some of them to the centre of the flowers. Again, I'm not sure this is really particularly going to show up on camera because they're quite delicate, but the point being that as the card is lifted up to the light, it will catch, the sequins will catch the light, and just give that extra little bit of detail. Just thinking where else I could add one. Let's go with one down here. There we go. I'm not sure. Let's say whether that is. I'm hoping you're catching that a little bit. So again, just a little bit of added detail to pretty up the card. So that's it. Very, very simple, but hopefully we've finished up with, again, a pretty card that we can use to brighten someone's day, and it hasn't taken us very long, and it hasn't required great amounts of stamping or a great amount of planning, if I'm honest. So as I say, very simple to put together. So as always, what I have used is current, and you can purchase anything that's caught your eye from my online shop, including the Wink of Stella if you've been taken with that idea of just giving your projects that extra bit of lift. So my link to my shop will be on the front, as always, as will the link to my blog. So that's it. I will be back with another project very soon, and I promise it won't feature pale papaya, just in case anyone's getting fed up with that. But I will see you again very soon. Until then, please take care and look after yourselves. Bye for now.